Welcome to Club Wisdom 8. This is the big ranking number 2. Yes, number 2. It has been a long time coming, and there are so many new changes that have taken place. You've really got to look into this, and please, if you can, press like and subscribe. Hardly anyone in the English-speaking world seems to play this game. It would be helpful. Let's begin. So, what has happened since last time? Since over, well, let's just say nearly a year ago. What has really taken place? A lot. This game has changed a lot. Can start with Arena. Arena has changed. Every 2 weeks, different people are not allowed to become leaders. Different heroes are exempt, are stopped from becoming leaders. So this is why in this ranking, we have a ranking for who would make the best leader, and who in the ranking would take up the best normal role. So please keep that in mind. So on the left is leader, and on the right is the normal role. An additional, like last time, is the whale as well. Anything extra if you had loads of cash to spare. Now, leadership has changed in the arena. Now, also how you're buffed and debuffed in the environment of the arena, that's been a change to the 1v1, v2, v3. So there are lots of new things to take account of. Not just arena, levels have become harder as they go through Chaos, Astania. There's been a buff that's taken place to heroes and soldiers, I believe, of around 200 HP to only cavs and warriors, like swordsman and spearman. So please take that into account, that there's been a buff that really has upgraded cavalry units. What else? Soul weapons. Soul weapons are complete. Now we have the completed soul weapons, and soul weapons weren't a big thing before. Now they are. Now soul weapons have a huge impact on the game. However, I haven't included it, except if I do think the soul weapon is gonna give something extra, I might add the word SP special. Okay, so I might have to change that to soul weapon. Haven't decided. What other changes have taken place? All the awakenings have finished. Before, not everyone could be awakened. Now everyone has been awakened. What else? Loyalty. We have loyalty. You can now further buff up heroes. What else? Weapons. Transcendence of weapons. You can buff up weapons even more. I mean, the amount of buffing we have now, and don't forget level 70. Before, people could only reach level 60. You got to think, what does that mean? It means a lot again for cavalry units. They're much stronger than ever, and the final thing you got to remember, 12 stars. Before, we only had 6 stars. Now we have 12 stars, and you know what? You give a 7th star, and that means you can now put on the new cloak. We never had a cloak before. There are too many new buffs, a lot of new types of armor. Things have upgraded far too much in a short period of time. So we need to take all these things into account. Okay, so let's begin. So let's start with Alus. As usual, Alus, the protagonist, the main guy of the game, the leader. The most strangest leader in terms of story, in terms of what has become of him. He has gone from okay to completely ridiculous. So this Alus, I mean, in terms of using him as your main hero and stuff, I mean, I think everyone hates him. His overall 3.3, I mean, This guy's the kind of guy you really hate, honestly. He's become someone even the people who follow him don't want to follow. So I'm sure he'll redeem himself later, but I mean, ridiculous. Sometimes he's even a woman. He doesn't know who the hell he is. This guy is completely nuts. Either way, you've got to forget this because there are too many others in the game to focus on. What do I think of him? I wouldn't use his ultimate skill personally, and his normal skills, well, his active I don't like, but his passive is super. Like last time, nothing has changed. When your HP drops to 75% or less, it increases the physical attack by 25% and the physical defense by 25% for all units. All units, all 19 units. It says for 13 seconds with a cooldown of 20 seconds. I would like to make a double confirm of that, actually. So what I want to double check for you is is it still 13 seconds on there? No, yeah, it's 15 seconds. Yeah, and when the HP drops to 75% or less with a cooldown of 20. So please keep that in mind. This is too excellent. 15 seconds and the cooldown is nearly the same amount of time. This is great value for money if you can get him to under 75%. So you might have to star him up a bit and you might have to manual him. That's right, you might have to manual him. So I'm going to add a new, in fact, I'm going to add something else. I'm going to add the word M. I'm going to add M. So if you look down here, although there are strengths of different units, which you will get to know, one thing is a non-strength will be to manual, meaning that you will have to automatically keep an eye on Alus and move him around and try and keep him alive, or manual a healer to keep him healed at a certain time. That, or for instance, you can keep Alus close to Tori, and as soon as he gets hit, you move him into one of Tori's little Totos. So it's not going to be very nice in one respect, but if you do that, if you can make sure you can keep him like between 50 to 75% in terms of HP without him dying, he is great to have. As a result, I am going to place him as not a leader and an S this time, not an A. I'm going to put him as an S in a normal role. Why an S? Because I use him all the time. I use him in everything. I even use him in World Raid. Not as a leader in normal roles. I use him very importantly in Arena. I use him not in Cave, because Cave needs leaders. Underground Cave only has leaders. But I use him in every single normal role. In fact, because he's so important in normal roles, I hate to say it, he really could even be worth an SS. That is sad. That is a sad change, huh? Because this guy is a total imbecile. This is the last person you would want on your team. However, he is more important than anything. So, Alus, manual for a start, and the next point is what's important is his buff. Not much else. So you can make him important for other things if you work on him, like every other unit. Every other unit, if you work well with them, you can make them very special. Alus can be made into a very special person if you focus like on critical, for instance, crit rate. If you want to focus on those kinds of things, he could be quite powerful. So it's up to you how you want to build him. Please keep that in mind. I don't want to ruin this. It's already hard enough to try and fix this up. But yeah, he's a manual and you need to buff him. Apart from that, I think that's good enough. Next. Oh, before that, let me just add, as a whale, his soul weapon gives him resurrection at level 15. A whale's soul weapon makes him really important as well. So for a whale, he's a must-have if you have enough money. So there you go. So for a whale, you not only have to manual him and use his buff, but you get the soul weapon, which means you theoretically can do many things with him. Even if he's below 75%, you might not need to manual him because you don't need to care if he dies because he'll just resurrect. Great. Ridiculous, isn't it? Okay, so let's move on to the next. Okay, let's talk about LENA. So, actually, I'm not looking at the old ranking. I don't remember what I gave LENA, but it's definite that her ultimate skill that increases every single archer on your team's attack speed by, it's not like 50%, it's not 100, it's like the attack speed increased by 300%. This is completely ridiculous. This is ridiculously OP. I know she's been around for ages. I know everyone's probably forgotten about her. Like, everyone's focusing on like Natasha, etc. But you can't underestimate how good this is. It's like in a guild raid, she's a must-have. She's a must-have in guild raid. And if you're gonna have an archer team in general, you're gonna have her on it. It's like there's not much else there's not much better than her. She's really ruined it for the other archers. And with regard to the other skills, yeah, they're alright. They don't buff anyone, they just buff herself. Well, the second one. But her soul weapon is quite an interesting one, actually. But it's not very interesting for free to play. I mean, her soul weapon, if you have a look, the everlasting fire arrow fires an arrow which explodes on impact. The explosion causes a fire pit. This fire pit for 15 seconds, dealing 100% physical damage per second. So, I mean, this is nice, but the cooldown is ridiculously long. 15 seconds to 60 seconds. So it's wrong unless you're a whale, in which it's reduced. The cooldown's reduced by 34 seconds. I mean, who in the world would give a whale that much potential? So for a whale, that's great. That makes her actually quite a viable unit by herself in some respects. Nevertheless, it's her ultimate skill. Her ultimate skill is it's just too good. So again, how do you place her? I mean, how do you place LENA with her ultimate skill? So the question is, do I go with her as an S or an SS? So yeah, it's a hard choice. It's a very hard choice for me personally. So I don't want her to be SS because let's say you use magicians. If you use magicians, then she's no good. So if you use magicians, she's no good. So actually, she's just generally good for her buff. But you must remember with Alus, he's good for everyone. However, the problem is it's physical. So maybe, but at least he will give a physical defense of 25% extra he can give it to everyone. So it's, Alus doesn't just improve an attack, he improves a defense. You can't underestimate that. So I hope that helps. Honestly, for me, should she be an SS? I would say yes, because I'm still using her all the time. For you guys, you have to think about it. Damn this PowerPoint. Anyway. Oh, it's so hard to see it as well. Damn it. There we go. I moved it to the right. So, honestly, for me, I'd put her as SS, but it depends on yourself. But you're going to be using her a lot. And I did make one mistake. She only works as a leader. I'm sorry, she can't really work. Maybe that can actually help to make her an S and not an SS, because we need to rely on her leadership level. And that isn't too good. So, yeah. Should I, in the whale category, I don't really want to focus too much on the whales. But as a whale, yeah, it's probably something a bit similar. But it depends. She's not the best whale material, but at least that buff will help everybody. So again, yeah, she's pretty much the same. So I'm not going to make any changes there. Next is Xenos. So instead of the Roeams, now we're on the Empire units. This tank is pretty weird. This is a weird tank. When you think of tanks, you think of Kremhild. This guy doesn't come up hardly ever, even though he's a big part of the story. What makes him so weird is that it's quite easy for him to get killed, and there's a huge point. Is it this one? No. When your HP drops to 75% or less, increases your own defense. Okay, so not that one. This one, the shield bash. Sorry, it's the active. It deals 400% physical damage to an enemy and stuns them for 2 seconds. Okay, cooldown 8 seconds. It's this skill. It's this weird active skill that surprises me. And with Awakening, stuns them for 7 seconds with a cooldown of 8. Yeah, the stun seems pretty good, right? But what is weird is that you have the Gram Sword that at level 20 stuns them for 8 seconds. So I see the cooldown's longer, but I mean, you can put a Gram on a normal everyday soldier. You can put it on any soldier with a sword. I mean, it's weird. It's like what Xenos does for his active and Awakening is worse than Gram. It's like well, the cooldown is good, but I mean, it's just a bit. It's ridiculous. This unit is on the verge of being stupid until you see his ultimate skill. Increases every single swordsman's unit's ranged evasion by 25% and physical defense by 50%. Now, the question is that important? Do we need to care about ranged evasion and physical defense? Well, let me tell you a secret. It seems that the game's meta is... So, the future of this game's meta is that it seems it's going to go in the direction of having to increase our evasion. Making sure our evasion is very, very high. So, and defense, of course, that coming along with it. So, not just ranged evasion, but also short ranged. I think it's called melee evasion. So, we need to be able to prepare for that. So unfortunately, Xenos, although at the moment is pretty useless, he might end up becoming one of the best buffs in the whole game. So although right now, I mean, for example, if you're running the Werebeast units, this guy's useless. You're not going to be using a swordsman, so you don't need to buff them. But if you were using those foxy swordsmen and you wanted to increase the evasion, okay, maybe he has a function. But it's difficult. It's really a difficult one. I mean, let's pop it to 6-star and see what it can become. So. Yeah, so increased by 35% physical defense, 50 and 50% for 15 seconds with a 35-second cooldown. That's still quite a long cooldown compared to what Alus can give. And he gives it to everyone, not just swordsmen. It's a lot to think about here. Really is a lot. But But you know, the ranged evasion, I think, if I'm correct, is it on the Empire units? I think it might be stronger. I just have a quick double check of that. Ranged evasion 5%. Is really, really? Is it that low? Is it really that bad? Goodness. Yeah. I mean, if the Empire ever become good, which at the moment the Werebeast has ruined everything, but in the future I can see that Xenos would play a great role, especially with his evasion. So you need to think about that very carefully, and clearly he can only be used as a leader, and that takes up a very important slot. Unlike how I would have placed him before, I won't. At the moment, he's not an S. I'll put him as an A, but I can tell you he's not an A for everyone. Definitely not for everyone. And again, it's because we're paying him for his buff. So, gonna add the B here for him. It's his buff that he gives, and it's a leadership buff as well. Damn it! I hate this nonsense. Okay. So I hope that helps somewhat. Any other points here? 1v1. He is 1v1, but it's a strength. His 1v1 is a strength, but the problem is that you can get the same with a Gram sword. So why should I focus on him as anything special for 1v1 when anyone else with that weapon with a Gram sword can do exactly the same? So no. Oh, I can add to you though that his faction buff is quite good. I am a user of the Empire. I didn't choose it in some respects, but anyway, his faction buff is quite good. So if you were to use Empire and have him as faction, you might find that, yeah, okay, faction buff is good. Okay, I think I'm gonna move on. Next up is MACAU, Michael, whatever. And what do I think of him? Well, I think I haven't treated him with enough respect. His ultimate skill increases your spearman unit's physical defense by 100% for 12 seconds with cooldown of 31 seconds. Actually, that changes to 15 seconds on 6-star with a cooldown of 25. So 15 to 25. That is absolutely great. And it's 100%. So this is actually very nice to have. And his physical damage, actually, it really does increase. And if you add the awakening skill, he's actually very, very good awakened as well. So, I mean, for me, I think this guy is clearly pretty much underestimated. When he's on my team, he's always dying. So I don't know what, I don't get what it is with him anyway. But I don't know how he is for you. But deals 800% damage, reducing their movement speed to distant enemies, it's not just close, and by 90%, and attack speed by 50% for 10 seconds. I mean, this guy, he debuffs and attacks, and the debuffs are not too bad. So I do think, and not just that, 10 seconds with a very fast cooldown. I mean, on paper, he looks amazing. But why is it whenever we always fight him in like faction or whatever, it's like he always dies? It's like only like Sophia seems to be or like Dark Alus. It's like only certain the whale units seem to survive. So this unit MACAU is really weird. Personally, it could really be because his ranged evasion and melee evasion needs to be raised up. So I think maybe as a whale unit he has more potential, and perhaps you'd need to manual him quite a bit and keep him away. But so he might need to be a kind of leader. Yeah, so to get anything out of him, and it's really weird because honestly speaking, spear users, spear soldiers, are there really any good spear soldiers? I will say not really, no. I'll say some of the sword users are better. So what can you do with him? He's buffing something that we don't want, although his buff is really good. But I would probably not waste my time having him as a leader. So for some people he could be really good. I'm thinking maybe for a whale, he has something, he really has something to offer, you know? So it's a big one to think about. With the spear users, it's not always about defense, it's more about attack. But with the sword users, defense would go a long way. So I might upgrade him for a whale, although I haven't really checked his soul weapon. I doubt it can be anything amazing. But I think I even think for a whale, giving him an A is just rude. I mean, for a whale, anyone can be an SS. Anyone can be an SS, as long as you put enough like cash into them. So that's one thing. So yeah, so forget him. I don't need to put him here at all. But again, it's his buff. His buff is what makes him who he is. So let's just add the buff. Nothing else except that what he does seem to be good, but perhaps it's because of his low evasion, and that's why Xenos for me can do better. So a bit strange, but hey, but I must say though that his passive skill is actually quite good. Ideally, like as he loses like HP, I think he can kind of get stronger and hold himself out. But still, he never does. He's not a tank that seems to keep going. Okay, so don't know. Let me know what you think. I mean, I really wish he could be better.